Hey, fifth grade, welcome to Math Review for Wednesday, April 15th. This is Miss Gibson coming to you with your math reviews for today. So make sure you are having a blank piece of paper out, a pencil, eraser, and this date's packet for today. Okay? So go ahead and get started on the math review, and then you're going to come back and check your work. Make sure you are following the directions and looking closely, especially for inequality signs for less than or greater than when you are going through your work. All right? Pause the video and get started. All right. So for the first portion, you guys are supposed to do true or false and explain your thinking. So I'm going to go through each one and explain how I got to my answers. For the first one, it says 0.332 thousandths is less than 34 hundredths. I said this is true because the 4 in the hundredths place is more than the 3 in the hundredths place. Okay, so realize if I were to line these up, my 4 is greater than my 3, which is why this is true. Number 2, 56 hundredths is more than 551 thousandths. I said this is true because the 6 in the hundredths place is more than the 5 in the hundredths place. So yes, this is a bigger number, which is getting me closer to my 1, which is what basically we should be getting to. Lastly, I'm saying 122 thousandths is less than 22 hundredths. True or false? I said true because the 2 in the tens place, so in my second number, is more than the 1 in the tenths place for my first number. Okay? So realize I should be paying attention to my inequality signs right here for each one and not just looking at the numbers. Always pay attention to those. Okay. Now for my next portion. I was supposed to order the following numbers from greatest to least. I ordered all of them from greatest to least. And I also did this by thinking of if I were to line them up from decimal point and beyond, what would be greater? So I know for my first one that 67 hundredths is more than 667 thousandths because my 7 in the hundreds place is more than my 6. Okay? In the hundreds place in the second one. And then, of course, I know that right now this is 0. So clearly, 6 in the tens place is greater than this 0 in the tens place right here, which is why both of these numbers are greater than my 0 in the tens place. Again, you are doing this from greatest to least. Okay? Next one. So this one is a little bit tricky because some of them have, again, less numbers visually than others. So you have to think of this conceptually. All right. So I know that my first number is going to be 522 thousandths is more than 52 hundredths. Why? Exactly. Because if I were to add a 0 right here, I know that my 2 in the hundreds place is more than 0 hundredths. I mean, 0 thousandths. I'm sorry. So I know that my 2 in the thousands place, okay, is more than my 0 in the thousands place. And then, of course, the 0 in the tens place doesn't really help me much when I know I have 2. I have a 5 in the tens place right here and a 5 in the tens place down there. All right. Make sure you're checking your work, starring if you're still having a problem with trying to order numbers from greatest to least. Remember, when you are always ordering numbers from greatest to least or trying to figure out which one is more than or less than when we're dealing with decimals, you should always line your decimal points up and write down your numbers and then move from left to right to see which one is higher than the others. Okay? So the same type of work is going to apply when you're working from least to greatest. Okay. So right now we are ordering the next two portions in from least to greatest. All right. So I know that 3 thousandths is less than 23 hundredths. The reason being is because I have a zero in my tens place, while this has a two in the tens place. And of course, the three in the tens place right here. So I know that this is from least to greatest. Again, you should always be lining them up and then working from left to right to figure out if, especially if you're doing least, which one has the least number first in order for it to be the least number possible. Okay. Now for my following one, again, I know that I have zero in my tens place. So this one also has zero in the tens place. So I have to look at my hundreds place to figure out which one is going to be least when I'm doing least to greatest. I have another zero in my first number, and then I have a nine. So I know that this nine is clearly more than my zero. So 9 thousandths is less than 99 thousandths. Okay? Go ahead and check your work. Make sure you're starring this and making sure you're noting if you were having problems with this. You can also write these examples in your notes. It's always good to keep and refer back to if you're ever confused on how to order numbers with decimals. All right, so the first part that you guys will have to do for the next page was to write the numbers below in standard form. So we know that standard form is basically the exact answer for these numbers and not expanded form, where this is an example right here of expanded form. So write the direct answer. So I know that 2 to the third power is going to be 10 times 10 times 10 because I'm doing 10, multiplying it by itself 3 times, which gives me an answer of 1,000. 2 to the second power. I know basically that is 2 times itself twice, because it's the second power, which is giving me 2 times 2, which equals 4. Lastly, I know that 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 is going to be 10,000 because I'm doing 10 by itself, multiplying it by itself 4 times. And I know that I should have 4 zeros in my answer because this is also a representative of a base 10 number where you should be counting how many tens you're multiplying by itself and making sure you have that correct amount of zeros when you are multiplying 10 repeatedly. Okay. Let's move on to the next page. The next part. You are doing estimating of the sum. So, estimate. Remember, some of these may be estimating to zero because it's the most reasonable response, or maybe estimating to that whole number. You have to pick and choose what you're estimating to, depending on where the number is at. So, I know that 2.3, I am estimating to 2. Point 0.3, I'm estimating to 0 because it's such a low number and it's nowhere close to 1. So my final answer would be 2. The second one, 231 plus 6 hundredths plus 198 plus 1.2. So I estimated my 231 to 200 because if I were to put this on a number line, it's not more than 250. So the most reasonable response would just be to just put it to 200 because it's such a big number. Point 6, 0.06, I'm sorry, will be to 0. It's the closest to 0. 198, I'm putting that to 200. 1.2, I am estimating that to 100. So my estimation will be around 201. Lastly, these are even bigger numbers. So I know that I'm going to want to round it to that 10,000. Okay. So 10,209, I'm putting to 10,000. 19,893, definitely putting to 20,000 because that is close to that. 23, I am rounding to 20. And then point 12, I'm putting to 0, which gives me an estimate of 30,020. Okay? So make sure you are checking your work. If you are having problems with estimating the sum, make sure you are starring this and reaching out to your teachers. And then, of course, for exponentials and things like that, starring it, reaching out to your teachers if you do not understand the powers of base 10 or any of the number to solve these and put them into standard form. Okay, so for the last page, you guys were supposed to be doing specific operations. So the students are going on a field trip. There are 108 people going on the field trip. Each bus can hold 28 people. How many buses must be ordered so that every person can go on the field trip? So, of course, What operation is this? Exactly, division. Why is it division? Right, because we have 108 people that need to be divided up into 28 groups to be fitting onto buses. So we need to figure out our quotient, which is how many buses we will need. So, in order for me to figure this out, I made sure to make a multiples list. So, at first, I did 28 times 10 and it 280. I realized that that was entirely too high for what my dividend was originally, my divisor was originally, which is 108. Then I did 28 times 5, which is 140. Still realized that's too much more than what I have, which is 108 students or people. And then I did 28 times 4, which is 112, still too high. And then I did 28 times 3, which got me to 84. So I realized that I needed to subtract my largest group possible of 84 from 108. So that got me three groups already for 28 people to be fitting on buses. But I still have 24 left over. Can we leave all 24 people out? No. So we need all 108 people to go on this bus. So I know my fraction right now is three buses and 24 left over out of the 28 people that can hold a bus. So I know that I need four buses to be accounted for everybody that should be on this field trip. Now, how many empty seats will be on that bus, that last bus? So I know that there are going to be four empty seats because it takes 28 to fill a bus, and the fourth bus will have 24 out of 28 filled. So, of course, the four seats left over is contributed to that. Make sure you're checking your work. If you're having problem pulling out dividend and divisor and doing your work this way, or using strategic lists, multiples lists to help you out, make sure you're reaching out to your teacher for this portion. Last part, you will have to write each number in standard form. So again, basically putting everything that you have from expanded form into one number. Okay, so I solved for each portion that this number just gave me from expanded form, and then I added them together. Go ahead and pause the video and check your work. All right. So again, if you are having problems from moving from expanded form to standard form, make sure you're reaching out to your teacher so that you guys can converse on this because this is past content. And of course, you should always have your resources out to refresh your memory and always be reaching out to your teachers to get more clarity on things that you are either forgetting or you need more practice on. Okay. Now, time for the access code for your quiz today for Math Review. Your code is BOOKS. 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 Okay? So make sure you are spelling this word correctly, putting it into your exit ticket, and getting started on that. Make sure you're also doing all your work on separate piece of paper so that you are finding yourself the correct answer to end the day on a great high positive note with 100% of your exit ticket. Happy Wednesday. We're 2 more days till Friday in our break. Have a good day.